Doombots, we come from one video of a character that I could not find anything in particularly relevant on in Bullseye, to a character that I had to stop reading about because there's just too much. Cable. So, this is going to be long. I'm going to put something in here to let you know if you don't care about this to skip, because this is gonna be a while. Cable is an alternate future child of Cyclops and Jean Grey. Manipulated by Mr. Sinister to defeat Apocalypse in the year... Who cares? Because that's also not true. Because he's also the child of Madeline Pryor, Jean Grey's clone, and Cyclops from a alternate reality in which the Sentinels took over in Days of Future Past. But also, he was the prophet child born of the Oksani clan to balance out the sins of the past. And he has a half-sister named Rachel Summers sometimes. And he can connect with the Phoenix Force on occasion. And he is infected with the techno-organic virus sometimes. Sometimes he's the progenitor of that virus. There's a lot. Cable's got a lot going on. Here's the basics of what I can tell you about Cable, and hopefully from here you can understand that there's 4 million timelines and Cable's a part of all of them. Cable is Nathaniel Summers. Nathaniel Summers is historically X-Man, or the child of Cyclops and Jean Grey. What makes him Cable is the future that happens to him. In some futures, he is not infected with the techno-organic virus, nor is he committed to any religious slash cult slash prophecy, nor is he brought in by Mr. Sinister to do anything. He just exists as an incredibly powerful Omega level telepath, telekinetic, everything. And again, retcons are all over the place, but that's where Cable starts. After that, it gets a little weird. Now, if you've seen the Deadpool 2 movie, you know, he is protecting Hope Summers. If you read comics recently, he's predominantly like an X-Force character who's looking out for Rachel, his half-sister, the child of Cyclops and Madeline Pryor that wasn't him from another reality. I'm sorry again. Sometimes he's Strife because a clone Sinister made of him completely beat the techno-organic virus and then use that to become stronger. And then sometimes he actually becomes the character Strife. Again, I'm really sorry. Here's what I'm doing. Instead of my usual, this is the first appearance of Cable, which I will absolutely give you in the description below. I believe it's New Mutants 86 from like the 90s. And keep in mind, that's as Cable, not as the child who was born. I'm also going to put together another link of like just 15 different Cable series if you're that interested. It is interesting, but it's kind of like trying to keep track of time travel in a story you've never read, about a character you've never heard of, and a threat that's never come up. It's just really hard to keep up. So instead, we're just going to talk about his powers. As of right now, he's what's called an alpha level mutant. What does that mean? It means Omega level being the upper limit of their powers is knowable. The reason he's alpha level is the effect of the techno-organic virus. The reason his arm is metal is that his biology is becoming technology. And because of that, he's lost a degree of his power. So he has an alpha level, or a very high but not quite infinite or untraceable amount of telepathy, and a very high but, depending on who's writing, not quite or very much omega level telekinetic. Basically, the techno-organic virus is what prevents him from being able to use all of his powers. If he, for some reason, beats it, or on versions of him that aren't, he is an omega level telekinetic. He can basically move anything, or they can't really determine what he can't move for that. So that's the core of his powers, for what it's worth. He's not particularly smart. He's not particularly strong for a dude who happens to have a metal arm with this weird axe sword hanging up behind him. He's not particularly anything, but he's good at punching people in the face, and he can teleport through something called a body slider, which is future tech that apparently only he has now. And it just, like I said, physically moves him through time. It's not so much teleporting, so much as it's time travel to a different point in space-time, which is also teleporting, or all teleporting is time travel. I don't know. Cable's confusing, okay? He's really confusing. He also can talk to computers. He can create illusions and see through illusions. He can become invisible by telling people he's not there. Like the world's angriest D&D character. He can read people's minds. He can put ideas in people's minds. He can trick people that he doesn't know. He can make people forget stuff. He's psychic sometimes in the precognition way. He can form a shield that looks tech, but is actually just his brain telling, no, don't hit me. He can astral project. He can kind of control his own body due to a combination of how technology works, his techno-organic virus, and his mind, his powers. Sometimes he has Psylocke's powers. I'm sorry, I know I'm being annoying, but Cable's weird. Like, you really have to appreciate how weird Cable is in the scheme of comics. It's almost like sometimes they just were like, and now Cable does this. And if you read comics in the 90s to 97, like 90 to 97, that's kind of how they used Cable. Like, they were like, we don't know what to do here. There was like 45 different X titles: Excalibur, X-Force, X-Factor, X, Y, Z, Y the Last Man, featuring Cable, all of it. And they just kept throwing Cable in, and it was almost like, they're like, we'll use Bishop when we want people to be happy, and we'll use Cable when we want people to have a headache and smoke. So that's kind of everything I could say about Cable. Again, description below. As many things as I could find regarding Cable for your interest. So now let's talk about Cable the character. Okay, Hero, Cosmic, Mutant, Blaster, X-Force. Hero, Cosmic, amazing, right? As far as what can be used, there's a lot of uses for hero characters. There's a lot of uses for cosmic characters. And he's not bad in a lot of those uses. Mutant character, I think there's 2 bad mutants in the entirety of the game. And they're probably getting reworked real soon. At least one of them is. So, yeah, like, there's no such thing as a bad mutant in Marvel Strike Force. That's a great tag to have, right? Blaster, as we've already talked about, blasters tend to be really good. Cable's no exception. I remember, again, different time, but I couldn't have gotten through most of the challenges, the blaster challenges, without Cable. He's just a big, strong boy that hits really hard. The X-Force tag is probably his most relevant tag. Devoted is, you know, random season tag. So, as far as where he's going to get value, yes, you could technically use him in Cosmic Dark Dimension nodes. I know of people who have. He is a mutant, so he takes mutant gear, and there are better mutants to invest that much into than him, like Longshot and Shatterstar for Cosmic, or any other mutant for any other node ever except Multiple Man. So, and he also technically shares some gear with some of the other character. Well, not really. Not really. But he shares mutant gear with, like, other cosmic characters who could be useful, like Bishop. So, not a high priority investment. And again, Blaster, there's only the challenge, right? So if you got him, use him. If not, that's fine. But the X-Force tag is what really kind of focuses you in, because he is part of a team that won pretty good in war. Not great. Definitely went from, like, one of the best war teams to, like, A-tier war team, you know, from S-tier to A-tier. Still great at beating the teams it was great at, just not as good because there's better teams it can't beat now, if that makes sense. But the X-Force also unlocks Dr. Octagonopus. If you're unaware, that's Dr. Octopus. And Dr. Octopus is awesome because he has 6 arms and 2 legs, so 8 limbs, and is just a really fun and cool character to play as. Whether you need him, that's up to you. I can't tell you that. But he is a legendary unlocked character on a good but no longer great war offense team. I still use him. And he's a very important part of that team. I think arguably he's probably the 3rd most important investment in that team as far as making them strong to help you win. More so than like Deadpool or Domino. They just kind of have to be there. So, looking at what the kit is, Striker works best with him because he does the most damage on that team. And I know that sounds silly because X-23's ultimate technically will do more damage, and so will Negasonic Teenage Warhead's ultimate. But Cable's basic hits like a truck, and if you've ever used him, you know that's true. So increasing the amount of damage he puts out is actually very reasonable, especially when you look more at his kit. For other arguments, Raider, pretty reasonable on him. Skirmisher, a little bit less because you can't really guarantee he's ever going to be assisting anybody. He doesn't really get counterattacks that often, but he can. So, and realistically, he actually has pretty reasonable focus on his own, so you don't really need the extra bonus of focus from there. But Raider's okay. I've always liked Striker on him. That's just me. I actually like Striker on pretty much everybody, even though they really don't take advantage of it. Mainly because on that team, they just do so much damage on their own that increasing the amount is pretty reasonable anyway. And of course, in war, for a war team, if you guys didn't know this, deflects, you can't crit a deflect. So if you use Raider and you hit someone with a deflect on, and it won't crit, it won't apply a vulnerable. So that's that. Just throwing that out there for information. So as far as ISOs, I like Striker. I think you can make a justification for Raider. That's up to you. Time Sense is one of his coolest abilities, and why you sometimes will see him in situations you wouldn't expect, like in RTA or in an earlier arena meta. It's because on spawn, fill speed bar by 5% for self and all allies. Trust me, there's going to be Dark Dimension nodes and raid nodes where you're going to be like, why is Cable here? And then you're going to realize real quick, oh, that's why. Because he shows up and gives everyone turn meter. That little bit of turn meter sometimes can be the difference between in an RTA fight or an arena fight, you going first and winning, or Zemo wiping your team. That's an older meta, but I don't know which meta you're in. So you're going to see a lot of Cable. This is a pretty reasonable ability. Not great by any stretch, but like really good as a utility character. On charge, barrier, blah, blah, blah. As for the tier 4, the 10% chance to apply counter to a random mutant ally and 10% chance to boot. This wasn't inherently the most important thing. At the time, it was kind of like, well, it makes him really good on war offense and keeps the rest of your characters alive. Now, a little bit less relevant, but I don't regret it for what I did. I just wouldn't advocate for it now, if that makes sense. Moving to Psychic Surge, it's a high percentage damage attack. 470 with tier 4s, it's 530. It's unavoidable damage. It will hit. It has one of the coolest assassinate or execute animations. He just shows up behind you in a square and teleports you, and you're gone. If Deadpool is an ally, he gains an assist, and if this attack kills, both he and Deadpool's speed bars go up by 70%. It's just cool. It's a big damage attack. He actually still has some pretty reasonable damage. Both the multiplier and his base stat are pretty reasonable, so it's not crazy to think about investing in it. But again, that extra percentage is probably not going to make the difference between you killing a character and not. Usually it's just how much more damage you do to them, which might be relevant for X23 anyway. That's a team conversation. You can go check out my X-Force team video on that one. But more or less not particularly great. Overload. This is like my favorite ability. Attack prime, and yes, I tier 4'd it, and I have no regrets. It increases the damage. If charged, clear all positive effects from primary, 2 positive effects from secondary, attack 2 spaces from the primary target, reduce all of the character's speed bars by 10%, and lose charge. So, basically, it hits 3 people unless he's charged, and then it hits if you're hitting one of the back or middle characters on the map. Everybody removes a ton of debuffs and rewinds their turn. This attack is awesome. I couldn't wait to tier 4 this attack after the rework. That said, again, if you're only using him for war, you're probably using it defensively against the mercenary team to remove a taunt off of somebody. And honestly, if you've ever used this team against the mercs, Cable's always blinded. We don't know why or how. He just always is. So this attack's not going to actually hit ever anyway. But when it first came out, I was excited about it. I still think it's a good thing. I just don't think it matters anymore because I don't think he matters anymore, or at least as much as he did when they came out. And then Plasma Rifle, attack primary target for 300% damage. If not charged, fill speed bar, and gain charged. It gets a little cute with his ISO bonus or counter attacks too. So kind of like how Bishop works, just not exactly. With the assists and everything and the counterattacks and whatnot. Not really worth tier 4ing, but it's not hard to get charges on him if you've ever played. So pretty reasonable all in all. As far as a character goes, again, he's necessary for a legendary unlock. At the time of this video, the legendary is a pretty reasonable character, very good for Dark Dimension, very good for Doom Raid as a tech character, Doc Ock that is. Very good just as a character overall. So I would say that just because his value in that aspect is so high, and he's still a good war team. Most newer players, newer being anywhere under a year of play, will see some actual value out of this team if they pick them up. I know I've seen offers in the past for like $50 for, you know, a 3-star version of the team, or $20 for... They have weird offers, but it's not really a wasted investment. These guys are pretty reasonable, and Cable, as one of those members, isn't an unreasonable character, but not great on his own. He's a B. No other way to say it. He's like a B character. He's got more utility than most characters. He's got some pretty decent stats. His kit's relatively good. He's got a lot of viability in some game modes. You can always splash him in raids. He's a great option if you're just like, I have to beat this node and my main character died. If you had to, you could use a Cable, but you wouldn't necessarily want to go out of your way. This is probably like the upper limit of Cable investment. Gear tier 12, you know, whatever stars you get on him and red stars. Maybe a tier 4, but probably not. Whatever ISOs you can spare, that kind of thing. So hopefully that was helpful to you. And if you do find out more information about Cable from the stuff, comment below, let me know. If I left anything out, I know I did, but, you know, it's all on the bottom. So anyways, have a good night, have a great day. I've been Tony Scungili, and I really enjoy saying catch you later in the outro.